And does consent play into this at all, or can we understand anything about consent from this end? Like, does the female slave have to consent to that, or is it kind of like because she's owned and so therefore?
In the classical thought, the understanding is that by virtue of the fact that she's owned, she does not have the right to consent. Or to withhold herself from her master. The master has the full right over her, and her consent does not play anything in this relationship. We should understand that in the ancient world, women did not have many rights, and even marriage was not as we might expect it today, like a relationship of equality between spouses. So in the Quran itself, a woman is, her husband is referred to as her Baal, which literally means her Lord. The interpreters thought of female slaves as having a secondary status, even below this, and that their consent did not matter in this relationship. They were fully owned, and the master had the right to all of the woman. In essence, generally in classical Islamic thought, it is taken for granted that a Muslim man can have up to 4 wives at once. And in addition to the 4 wives, he can have an unlimited number of concubines, which refer to women who are basically have slave status. When they are owned by her master, a woman owned by her master has to freely give herself to the master. The master has the right to have sexual relations with her as though she were one of his wives. The believers are those who guard their private parts except from their wives and what their right hands possess. But curiously enough, while this is often interpreted to mean that a man could have sexual relations with his female slaves, it is never interpreted to mean that a woman could have sexual relations with her male slaves.
So this also shows you the psychology of Muhammad, that whenever he wanted something that he was being troubled by others, for example, marrying Zainab, for example, his wives are complaining about something.
A verse will come in the Quran, yeah.
This will come in the Quran and will give him exactly what he wants every time.
The details of this scandal are so bad. I think Surah 66 Tahrim, and he goes to the point where he literally threatens the wives, Hafsa and Aisha, indirectly saying, like, if you go against Allah, will replace you, and all the believers and the angels and Allah is against you. So the psychological game it plays with the wives is they have this illusion of, they can say no, we want to leave you and stuff, but can they really? Because the backlash and the psychological manipulation is intense.
So next one.
All right, this one's interesting, where it says Yahya said that Malik related, again from Imam Malik. So Umar al-Khattab said, what's the matter with men who have intercourse with their slave girls and then dismiss them? Point is that he's admitting that there were lots of Muslim men who were just enslave women just to have intercourse with them and then just sell them or just dismiss them or just leave. Point is, it just reminds you that yes, sex slavery was a common thing. And it says here, no slave girl comes to me whose master confesses that he has had intercourse with her, but that I connect her child to him, whether or not he has practiced coitus interruptus or stopped having intercourse with her. So I think he's saying that if a slave gets pregnant, the master is
denying it.
Yeah.
So it just goes back to the imbalance of power again.
Exactly.
With a marriage contract, you're agreeing to marry this woman and take care of her children. In the West, especially nowadays, and maybe all over the world, you are financially responsible as a father because you made the baby, and you're also responsible to care for the child's well-being and financial support and all that.
Yeah,
it's just saying that they wanted to have the cake and eat it too. They're having slave girls, but they're not willing to take responsibility for the babies that they're making. Right?
Yeah.
And again, is this good for society? That Muslim preacher yesterday was saying, oh, Islam is good for society, but is this good for society really?
No.
Creating a whole bunch of slaves that you can buy and sell and have babies with, and then even if it doesn't happen today, theoretically it can either come back, or even if it doesn't come back, the fact is this is all allowed as part of the religion. It's not condemned, right?
Yeah. And what I want to make one point is, the Islamic history is full of this, like from the Mughal empires to the Afghanis, and then great Muslim scholars even had slaves from 15th, 16th century. They would have concubines, and they would admit to it. So it's
Yeah.
not that this was only happening in the first part of Islam. This lasted for a while.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Jonathan Brown admits that too in his book.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Can you explain this?
Okay, so what happens here, and this is one more example, is the Prophet sent Ali to Khalid to bring the hummus of the booty, and I hated Ali. So Buraida, this guy, the companion, hated Ali. And Ali had taken a bath after a sexual act with a slave girl from the hummus. So yes, Ali, the cousin of the Prophet, and his son-in-law had sex with slave girls. And he was married to his daughter, by the way. He still allowed him to have sex with slave girls. So anyways, I said to Khalid, don't you see this Ali? When we reached the Prophet, I mentioned that to him, i.e. that he had sex with the slave girl. And then the Prophet asked, oh, Buraida, do you hate Ali? And Buraida said, yes. And then the Prophet replied, do you hate him? For he deserves more than that from the hummus. So he deserves even more slave girls, more war booty, more captives.
Yeah,
Yikes.
he deserves. Yeah, he deserves that. Yeah, he's a good commander, I guess. So he gets
Yeah.
lots of booty.
I mean,
It gives a new meaning to the word booty. Eh? Okay. This one was really hilarious. You found this. You want to read this?
Yeah, so this was I was just going through his last minute find. Aisha had a male slave and a female slave who were married. So there's a slave couple that Aisha owns. And I want to free them both. It makes sense. Yeah, if they're both married, just let them off, go free, they can enjoy their honeymoon. The messenger says, no, if you free them, start with the man first and then the woman. Like,
Why do
is
you
there
do
like
that?
it's like they're like does like the male slave have more value or takes precedence over female slaves?
Why do you want to keep the female slave?
Is this another form of patriarchy manifesting itself?
Well, female slaves have certain benefits that male slaves don't have, right? So I don't know.
maybe because the guy is free, like he can. Oh, okay.
Okay, so again, do you want to read these?
Yeah. So a man manumitted a slave, and he had no other property than that. So the Prophet canceled him. This is what's important. When Muslims say that the Prophet always encouraged freeing slaves, here's an example where the guy was already given away to pay. The Prophet canceled the manumission, canceled freeing of the slave, okay, and resold them to pay off debt.
Yeah,
Okay?
and there's other examples like that too.
Yeah, this is just one. There's like 3, 4 where he says that don't free the slave, give it to my uncle.
Yeah.
Better.
That's the next slide. We'll talk about that one.
But here's an interesting one where the Safiya thing, where Muhammad first, after the Khaybar, he killed her whole tribe, burnt her, I think it was his uncle or dad, tortured on her chest by lighting a fire, whatnot. After all of that, he then gives Safiya away to this guy called Dia Kalbi by mistake. Then people thought, oh no, she's a daughter of the chief. She's too pretty. You can't give it to Dia Kalbi. So then Muhammad says, oh shit, calls Dia Kalbi back, then gives him 7 slaves to get Safiya back. Point being, he's introducing 7 people into slavery to get one girl that he likes. And what I want to understand, you to understand that at this point, he already has a bunch of wives and a bunch of slaves. Like, why are you not satisfied? Why do you keep wanting more and more? The point is like slavery and like trading 7 for 1 again shows that slaves are a property, and they have varying values depending either on their skin color or their male or female and whatnot. And this shows that it's just despicable, like Mufti Abu Layth said.
Yeah. Although I don't think Mufti Abu Layth was talking about Muhammad. He has to get out of condemning Muhammad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. One of the responses that people sometimes give is that, well, if a slave woman gets pregnant, she becomes a special type of slave, or she's sort of his wife, but she's not exactly his wife. She becomes an walad, and it even says this is so damaging.
So you just sell the slave that is the mother of your child?
That is the crazy thing.
That's ridiculous.
It says we used to sell our slave women and the mothers of our children.
Wow.
And the Prophet was still living amongst us, and we did not see anything wrong with that.
Wow.
Had a baby so she's still a slave.
Wow, that's crazy.
And if you, so the fiqh says that if you die, before she dies, she's freed. That's in Sunni fiqh. Apparently, in Shia fiqh, she's only freed if the child is still alive. And her value is then deducted from this child's share of inheritance. I don't know the details about Shia fiqh. I just read that online. It may or may not be true, but this is what it said. So for Sunni fiqh,
Wow.
there's a sort of small advantage you have if you get pregnant with your slave master. So I mean, how is anyone defending this? Like,
There is no defense. I mean, you can't defend this. Like, come on, if you want to think that in the 21st century you can try to make arguments or pro this stuff, I cannot help you any further. Like, how much, like, it's at this point, like, you have to like hold everybody's hand and drag him out of this, because this shouldn't need explaining. This should be self-explanatory exploitation of vulnerable people. It comes back to the more relativism, right? And I don't buy the argument that Islam wanted to free slaves just a gradual. Man, you did a spontaneous, hardcore smackdown on so many other things in Arabian society. You could have easily ended slavery. If you can end idolatry, usury, fornication, yeah, you can end this.
And let's talk a little bit. Like, we gave examples where slavery was actually kept going. Like, okay, this is a good example. Like, let's talk about this.
Yeah. So it says here that a man among us promised freedom to a slave after his death, and he did not have any property other than him. So the guy who owned the slave has already promised that if I die, you go free. So the prophet told him,
what a beautiful thing to say.
yeah,
Hey,
it's a nice, noble thing.
Yeah, you're my slave. I'm going to die soon. You took good care of me. I'm going to free you. Now, let's see
But
what
the prophet didn't free him. He sold him to another guy to pay off that again.
in another hadith, it says the slave died the same year.
Wow. Oh, wow.
His
Yeah,
last
that's in
year of
Bukhari, eh?
life, he would have had a year of life as a free man. It was taken away from him because of Muhammad.
Wow. The next one says in Ibn Majah, a man had 6 slaves and he did not have any other wealth apart from them, and he set them free when he died. The messenger of Allah divided them into groups, set 2 free, and left 4 as slaves. Gosh, dude, this guy is bad. Like, I am seriously getting pissed reading this stuff. Like,
I'm getting pissed too.
I'm getting pissed.
Like, okay, you want to free slaves, and like, I want to swear right now, like, free them. Why are you doing this? Like,
yeah,
I know the Islamic thinking.
You give a false. Just imagine the psychological backdrop of this. These slaves are told that yes, we are free. They're expecting. They're happy. Yes, you've got our freedom. Oh no! Just imagine the psychological turmoil they go through. It's so terrible. Anyways, to simplify it, if a slave runs away, no salah will be accepted from him, and if he dies, he will be a disbeliever. A slave of Jarid ran away, and he caught and struck him in his neck, killing him. So basically, and I don't want to even comment on this. Like, it's so despicable. This is
crazy. It's crazy. It's like the guy who got mad at him for running away, so he killed him, and then it even justified.
And then they tell us that slaves have rights, and why the hell would this slave try to make an attempt to run away if he was so happy being enslaved by Muslim who were giving him all his rights and whatnot?
Exactly.
Think about this. The psychological component is very important. So the woman from the Hudayl tribe threw a stone at a woman from the same tribe. So these 2 women are having this fighting, and they're just throwing stones at each other, right? And this one woman had a miscarriage because the stone struck her belly, or she fell, whatever. The messenger of Allah, bless him and grant him peace, gave a judgment that a slave or a slave girl of fair complexion and excellence should be given to her as compensation for the miscarriage. So here we learn that you can actually use humans as gifts to compensate.
Islam is feminist, bro.